All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show, to the channel, actually. And on this episode, we're looking at Goliath, which is a show that I had not watched. And nor does it matter that I didn't watch it because I know the setup. And the scene that we are specifically looking at today, which is a small snippet of a much longer video, which you can find over on Patreon in the link in the description below. Each and every week, we do a feature film breakdown where we look at many, many scenes and we try and dissect how these people did them. Why? So that we can get better. Because we have nothing else to do except get better, right? We don't want to get worse. That would not be ideal. So we want to get better, and this is how we do it. And if you get better looking at this stuff, or if you think you get better, Patreon is the place to see all of the content. There's hundreds of, the back catalog is hundreds of feature film breakdowns. I've looked at so many scenes, so many different ways. In fact, I've looked at so many scenes, so many different ways that I've come up with a system for blocking and for coverage, which then, spoiler alert, is a system for lighting. Because if you know the blocking and the coverage, you can then maximize the lighting that you are able to pull off in that scene. You know where you're not going to look. You know what the best lighting setup is going to be. And in fact, there's so much content. There's so much to this. The idea sprung forth an entire system in my mind for this that I created a course. And it's hours and hours long, many, many hours long. But by the end of it, you'll realize that the bar scene, which is what we're going to be looking at, which doesn't actually have to take place in a bar, right? It's just a metaphor. It's two people facing the same direction. Anytime you have a scene with two people facing the same direction, do you think that there's an infinite number of ways to cover that scene and therefore light that scene? No, there's not. I know the answer. There's not. There's two ways to do it. And those two ways are very different and they yield very different results. And one is much more complicated. One is less complicated. One is easier to light. One is harder to light. If you know those decisions, you're in a privileged place. Why? Because the job is knowing what those decisions ultimately lead to. I mean, you could get lucky. You could, you could have a career where you never think about this stuff and you just get lucky 100% of the time and you find yourself in the ASC and you are talking about how systems aren't necessary. You're just that one lucky person that made it through. But chances are, you and I both know, right? You're not that one in a million. You're like me. You're not that good. You need every trick, every leverage point that you can possibly get. And this is how you do it. If you know what every decision ultimately leads to in the decision tree, well, then you can be more specific. You can actually have intention with what you were doing on set. And you have to know this stuff. You can't know this stuff while you're on set. You have to know it well before. Right? Things like this, scenes like this, they don't just magically happen spontaneously on the day where you're just like, oh, you know what would be a great idea is if we do this X, Y pattern of coverage so we can get exactly these looks to give off exactly this feeling, right? Come on. We're not living in a fairy tale. And I'll tell you how it actually is. It takes weeks, months of planning to do these things, or at least studying how to do these things. So on the day you can actually pull them off. So with all that being said, if you want to get better, the course is in the link in the description below. Hours and hours just on this specific scene. In fact, there's only 5 scenes. There's only 5 scenes that you ever have to worry about. If you know those 5 scenes and you know how to cover those 5 scenes, you can light all of those scenes. Now, only if there was a system for lighting as well. If there was some sort of a, I don't know, like a framework for making sure you got the maximum juice from the squeeze. Now, that would be beneficial. If you combine those two, you'd actually be a good cinematographer. Or more importantly, you wouldn't be good, but you could trick people that were not good into thinking that you were. Then you could get jobs. Okay, let's have a little look-see. And turn around. Oh, and now we come to the bar scene. Now you already know what's going to happen, right? Hello, Titan Tube. You already know what's going to happen. We're going to have a conversation here. It's probably going to be between 2 people at a bar. How are we going to play this? Person sitting here and old mate over here, right, in the hat. How are we going to cover this? Are we going to cover it from behind? We've already started from behind because we didn't want to reveal who this character was, but we're already from behind. Now, let's talk about the lighting before we even get there, right? We're chasing a sky panel down this way just to give us a little edge. We're using these little LED things under here just to give us a nice little something. And then we're playing tubes up top and haze, right? This is haze here. But even in here, like, look at this, man. This is cool. All these little lines poking out everywhere, plus our background stuff. Okay? Notice how down our bartender is here. Let's just watch what happens as we go in. There's also this little kick of light here. Like, just imagine if that isn't there, how much flatter things get. So if you start to feel down on yourself, you're out there shooting something with your friend, you're like, man, it sort of looks flat and like shit. That's because these little tiny things, like you got to set up a light for this. You got to get the color right. It takes time. It's a huge clusterfuck. If it's just you and your friend, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen, right? Maybe you get up the key, but by the time you do all this, it's, you know, an hour into setting up a shot like this. It's not gonna work on something low budget, but you have to understand the ideas in order to get better. So that's what we're doing here, right? This is nice. And then this little thing up here, you can feel it again. That's another tube, right? We got 2 tubes up here, and that's giving us our little reflection just here. Okay, let's see what they do. Ooh, a little push in. Can I get the extra walking by? Boom. Got to push in there. I like the matching push in. That's not in focus. All right, missed focus. Okay, we're going to go with it anyway. Let's see that jump in lighting. Okay, not that bad. But again, I like this. Like a little bit longer of a lens, but not making them huge, just shooting through this big giant mess. You know exactly where to look, right? That is lens composition done well, where you know exactly where to look. It doesn't require a whole lot of chasing around the image. Drop of the hat, push in. Do we keep the push going to the next shot? No, we don't. Little left or right there, but not much. Rack focus for some important element of the song. And we're coming around. Oh, boom. We're going in tight. If you ain't Wade Blackwood, this ain't your seat. Okay. All of a sudden we have, like, we could have approached this where we see the back of him, right? We could see Billy Bob just jump into this shot and then we could play everything from behind. But no, we're going to jump the line, right? We're able to jump the line with relative ease because we go from her shot, right, to this one where it's this little like inserty bit, and then we cut to around. So you're not really, like, a line hasn't really been established. We jump in, and now I don't know where all this tungsten light came from, but I like it. I also like the spotlight here, even though, again, we're getting quite hot. And these measurements for quite hot, like this exact measurement here, this is what I'm talking about when you get to know your camera. In the pre-production process of doing this, you're going to go, you know what, we're going to have a couple scenes where we do the Bob Richardson look. Let's just see how far over I like it. Let's see how far we can push it until I don't like it anymore. Because you know, the more that you get out of here, the easier it's going to be to get their faces. So you're going to want to get maximum out of this, right? So let's say this is 4 stops over, right? 4 stops. And I don't really like this. I would like 3.5 stops. Or I would like to switch to the Airy Alexa, please, right? Just to get that one little bit more out of it. Just something to think about in the pre-production process when you talk about lens tests and camera tests and what you would actually be doing. This is it. The other thing you would be doing is seeing, okay, I know I'm going to have some night stuff. I know these are older Panavision anamorphics that I'm shooting on. What happens to the background, to highlighted areas, if I am shooting damn near wide open? Like, is it beyond usable? Does it start to really go crazy and bloom out and get all soft and gross? Or am I able to hold some sharpness, like edge to edge? That's the other stuff you're doing. Okay, we keep going. We get a little smile, a little chuckle. Yep, the meet and greet. Again, none of this is framework, right? Because this is that scenario that we always talk about on the bar, which is, you know, obviously we've got all this dark stuff like this. Just, it wouldn't be there in the wide because we lit it up like a Christmas tree. But now we can only have light really coming straight at them. So now it's about making it as, this now becomes, the key now becomes like room tone. How do we make the light projected at them as soft as we possibly can so it just feels like it's falling on their face rather than it being projected at their face, right? One great way to do it, bounce it off here. You get a little bit of kick from here, and then you can push, you know, you can push from above camera. You can make it super soft from the side of camera if you want. You can do lots of different things. But if we go back, oh man, I need to get that jog wheel sorted out. Let's go back to the bar. Oh, I mean, this is well lit, right? This is not a, look at the bartender's hands, right? That's what the back of the bar is actually going to look like in real life. Now when we come around to it in movie life, it's all dark. Just turn off all the lights, right? Tell me where to look. Don't make me do any work. I want to be as lazy as possible. Also, look at the haze just cutting through here. This is nice haze. A little double reflection. What is that? Double reflection from the filter that they're using? Right? That person is that guy down there. They probably tried to slant it a little bit. But this is the perfect amount of haze, right? You can't feel the haze, but you can see it. Right? you can see the shafts, but you can't see the moving particles of haze. Okay, we keep going. Let's see, where are we going to take this now? All right, we're going to have to play the coverage from over this shoulder this way onto him, which we know because we're pushing light this way, it's not going to look that nice. All right, let's see how they tackle this. What would we do in this situation? I would probably be in the tent, having a snack, something like that. Okay, boom, cut to a completely different angle to the other side of the bar, and let's go back to our framework. Let's load up the foreground. Let's make it really dark over here, even though this thing is supposed to be, right? He's supposed to have all this light coming off of him here. There's a little bit of blue light and a little bit of warm light coming that way, but we don't care about that. We care about our bartender friend here and changing the line so that we're not stuck there. Let's see. I guess this would still work from the line because we've pivoted around to his open shoulder, but this is nice. A little bit of a quirky angle, lots of stuff running around in the frame. Again, tell me exactly where to look. And more of this stuff. This is a huge, long scene. I don't know if we're going to do every single shot in here because it would take forever. Let's keep going fast forward. Where do we go from here? Okay, now what happened there? Why did we just jump the side of the line? Because we can. Because we can. Lines be damned, especially sitting at the bar. And cut to, yep. Now look at how much better that light gets. Flat and up at him, right? Flat up, kind of gross. And maybe, stop underexposed. We go to the next frame, and boom, that's right on exposure, right there. Got a little highlight in there as well. Now you're starting to give me something here. I like the big pen. I like the lady in the background. I like all this stuff back here to create as much depth as we can. So it's dark. We know it's dark, right? Because of all these little areas. But look at how much highlight is everywhere, right? There's highlights everywhere, but you can still feel the darkness. You need the light. You need this stuff to make this feel dark and not flat, right? That's how you fight flatness in dark scenes. This little line here, right? Don't just make it all dark. This little top light here, very nice as well. This little tiny bit here, see that little tiny bit of kick there? Not an accident, people. Not an accident. And then also he's dressed in black, and so is this guy. Like, this is not easy. If it wasn't a reflective leather jacket, it would be quite the situation to be in. This green light, this is one of those ones where it's like, is that an exit sign? Can we cover that up? But it looks kind of nice too, besides his head. Again, strange framing to get all this little background interest in as well. Because if not, imagine we shuffle this way in this shot. There's not that much interesting over there. It looks like a wall. Again, man, now that is a fucking beautiful frame. That is sharp. The camera is still. The focus puller was able to get their marks. Billy is a veteran, so he knows, hey, don't move, dickhead. Do not move. If you want to be sharp and you want to be on the big silver screen here and you want to be a star, you'll just stay still and start acting. That's not what you would actually say to him, but he knows, right? He knows what time it is. And this is sharp, and this is beautiful lighting. And look at, I won't go back to the other image where we were around the front, but you can see why this way is definitely better. Now, what do I always say about backlight? Don't let it hit this guy in the nose. And what do you know? This is the perfect angle, right? Everybody's face is going to be different, which means your angle, and this is also the harder way to do it, right? Because he's way over here. If he was over here, like in a classic frame, right? His head here, shoulder on this side, and he's looking this way rather than short-siding him this way. It's easier to do because you can get further behind him. Here, with him way over here, you'd want really the lamp like right here in the middle of the shot. This is a sky panel, by the way. You'd want that sky panel this way. And so you'd probably just graze him and run it down the side of his face. But because there's a lot of distance here, it makes getting this light harder to do. So just something to think about when you're framing things up. But that is a beautiful looking image. Now, what can you do here to cheat it? Say you're in a location that's maybe not as cool as this, or because you can't see the bar, right? We're going to bring down our 4x4 frame of diffusion right next to him. And the plus of putting him this close to this side is we can get that light so much softer because the 4x frame can be right there, right? This is our little 4x of diffusion. Get a little bit over here. Maybe we stick a little bit of white card on our man here just so we get a little bit of wrap around to the side, or we just angle the 4x, which is probably easier. But because we don't see the bar, let's just nudge him out. We'll sit him on the stools. They can, we'll put up a box so they can rest their hands on the bar. But we want this in the background, right? We want this cool line. We want this red behind his head to counter the blue. Lots of different colors going on here, lots of different interesting things. And it looks like fairly easy. But when you start to dissect it, you see, oh, I see what's going on. Like somebody's doing their homework here. Again, beautiful frame. Get the fuck out of here if you don't think this looks nice, right? Okay, maybe it's dark, right? There's not a whole lot of nuance in the toe, but that's the grade, right? That's like you deciding that's the way it's going to be crunchy like that. Again, we go again. See how that blue light disappears too from this shot? Just get rid of the backlight on the person who's facing camera. Now, look at that jump. This is that same jump we saw in the Mauritanian. How this is like your standard, well, we're shooting on a 50. 50, matching. Boom, we're in on the 25, right? We're super wide. Or in anamorphic world, this is like a 35 or a 40. We're really in close after being back on a 60 or a 75 before. And see how much more of the room you get, like so much more. This is a very cool location. And then the light, same thing. You know, we talked about it before, not on the nose, a little bit around this way. And then you decide, like, what do you have to decide in pre-production or before you get on set to make this really quick and easy to do? Haze, number one. Number two, the ratios. This to this to this to the background, right? You got 4 things that you need to keep track of. 4 ratios. That was a terrible. 4 ratios, right? Well, not even 4 ratios, 4 numbers, which create, 3 different ratios? Key to fill, key to backlight, and key to room tone. That's really all you're measuring. That's a beautiful looking frame too, though. Ta-da! Smiling. And we go to him too. Oh, man. Now, I much prefer this than I do the wider back one, right? Like if we're just talking me, this is much more voyeuristic. But I think they're using this in the story. I can't remember exactly what they're talking about here. But some new shit is revealed. And that's when we jump inside the conversation. And look how much lower we are too, right? We're able to see underneath that chin there rather than looking flat on him. Again, that little tiny move as what's-his-face moves his head. Matching back and forth. Now this is probably, this is over-exaggerated, right? This is like a 35 and really close to him. If you were to bump out to, like a 50 in the anamorphic world, it'd feel a little bit more normal, but you'd still get lots and lots of space either side. But that is good. That is nice color too. I like all this interest that's going on with this thing. And big long monologue. And then we cut back to that. I mean, Jesus. It's not even close. How good that looks versus blah. This one. Right? But you got to do it. I guess you started that way on the scene. The only other way you could do it is from the other side. And to play it backwards, he'd probably have to change his body position. You'd lose all the bar elements in the foreground. This is also one where, if you're thinking about doubling up on shots, you can't really double up on any shots here if you're shooting 2 cameras. Like, what could you load up at the same time? Can't do this one in any other shot. Can't do this one in any other shot. Can't do this one in any other shot. Can't do this one. Well, I mean, I guess you could do, no, you can't even do cross coverage there. The angle is too extreme. And we keep playing it out. Let's see, do we need anything else? Boom, look at that cut in. Man, that is sharp. We're doing a couple of really sharp projects here, right? Again, just that tiny bit. Don't put it all over the place. Don't fill in over here. Don't try and, bounce this key off of here. Don't do it. Fight the funk. I'm talking to myself. I'm not talking to you. I would be like, ooh, maybe we just give them a little something. No, don't. Don't give them anything they can come back from. Fuck them. Okay, do you see what I'm saying there? You got 2 people facing the same direction. You're going to have the same complications every single time. You're going to have to tackle those. You're going to have to make decisions based on what you want to do, where you want the light to come from. And Goliath is a great example. I mean, very nuanced, very beautiful stuff where the angles are just right, mixing the color temperatures. There's all those things there. And for me, at least, it's beneficial to go through. And even though I know this stuff, time and time again, I review it so I can see, maybe there's something that I missed last time. Maybe there is a little something to, going the French overshot here versus not, or lighting from this side, or there is also that little benefit of just seeing how people don't care about matching. Like, so what? The light comes out of nowhere. Like, just make every shot look good. If I could pass on my tombstone, if I could pass on one piece of information to cinematographers out there in the world, just make every shot look good. Like, nobody cares if it matches. Just make it all look good, and you'll be okay. All right, that's going to do it for this one. Many thanks. We'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.